Ladies and gentlemen, from the depths of flyover country in the heartland of America, the Kansas City on the other side of the mighty Mo. Welcome to Hittin the Bricks with Kathleen, the do-it-yourself genealogy podcast that features your questions and her answers. I am John, your humble hubby host, and today we'll be talking to Julie Whittaker from Genealogy Safari. There's a lot to cover, so let's start hitting the bricks. I'm going to do it. If you don't say anything, Kathleen, I'm going to do it.
What's that?
Hey, baby.
Oh, God. Just once. Just once. You can miss it.
You need to step up. You need to get that first word in and start talking. Are you going to get the hey, baby? We're here with Julie Whittaker, who is a forensic genealogist. And I'm going to be learning how to pronounce multisyllabic words, as well as finding out what forensic genealogy is doing. And Kathleen's going to dig deeper and ask the questions that I don't even know I should ask. Kathleen, you know Julie, yes?
I do know Julie. Julie, how did we meet?
Probably through our APG local chapter.
APG
our lunches.
Heartland.
Yeah.
And it's a very active chapter in the Kansas City area, and it covers most of the Midwest. And so we used to, I don't know, are you still doing lunches now, Julie?
They do. It's just, I've been so busy now, I haven't been. I'm hoping to go next week.
Great.
So.
One of the things I learned about Julie through the APG meetings is that she is a forensic genealogist, and she owns a company. And Julie, is Genealogy Safari, right?
Correct. I started out doing family history research, but I was always fascinated by, on Facebook, I would see people post about forensic work, and I'd never really done it. And then the Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy back in 2012 had their first annual conference in Houston, Texas. And someone had posted, and I went to register, and I was bummed because it was already full. And I posted out, I'm like, darn it, I really wanted to go learn more about this. You know, how do I get on a wait list? Well, then someone emailed me and said, hey, someone canceled, do you want their spot? And mind you, it was in 2 weeks. I said, sure, why not? So I was able to book a hotel room because they had an allotment of rooms with already held. And then I went out to Southwest and was able to get a direct flight right into Houston from Kansas City. So I went.
The organization was the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy. Is that the name of it?
The Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy, or CAFG for short.
Okay. And do you have an active role in that also now, right? An officer role?
I do. I'm the treasurer on the board.
Excellent.
I got that role because I'm a CPA, and nobody else wants to do the books or the taxes. So, and I don't mind doing it. So,
Julie, you mentioned you're a CPA. What brought you into forensic genealogy? I'm starting to hear I love research, I love numbers type going on there, which is typically
I do.
Who I find my wife playing with in the sandbox. You know, when left to her own devices, she's going to gravitate to
numbers and genealogy.
Right. When I was young, my dad was always into the family history, and he was born in Windyville, Missouri, down by Lebanon and Buffalo, Missouri. And we traipsed through more farms looking for family cemeteries on those farms, and going to the funeral homes where we couldn't find the cemetery because they would always know where it was at. So that's how it started with my love of it. Of course, back then I didn't think I could make a living at something like that. And I love numbers. I was good in math, and so I became an accountant and a CPA. Well, then unfortunately he passed unexpectedly in 2010, and I stopped working to take care of my mom. And I was trying to figure out what could I do from home part-time. And being a CPA part-time at home, the liability insurance is really, really, really high. So I was like, what else could I do? So I started doing family history research because he died in 2010. I did that for 2 years till I found out about CAFG, and then I joined. And that's where I made the transition over to forensic. It takes a while to get your client base going and word of mouth, but now it's full-time for me.
Okay, so help me out here, Julie. Mm-hmm. Explain to our listeners what is forensic genealogy in general, and what part do you work in?
I do multiple, but we'll start with the definition. It's cases that have a legal implication or have something to do with the legal system or the probate courts or something to do, that has a legal implication to it. So for me, I started off just doing, when I joined CAFG, they have a mentoring program, and so I started off by doing cases with them that I got paired up with the forensic genealogist that did Navy repatriation repatriations, and I did another one that was a lawyer, and she did mineral rights. So I welcome being able to learn how to do both. Then the attorney has since retired, so now she refers all of her lawyer friends to me. And so I've gotten my base built up there. And then the person I was mentoring that did the Navy work hired me as a contractor, so I get work from her as well for the Navy.
Okay, so we're going to back up. One of the things you mentioned was the repatriation.
Right.
Tell me what that's about.
So I work on the Navy side, but they have a no man left behind policy. And with that policy, they created the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency right around 2015, I think it was. And with that program, it means that if they have an idea of where a serviceman perished, it's not just Navy, but that's just the branch I work for. If they have an idea of where a man may have perished and they think that they can reasonably retrieve those remains, then they have a commitment that they need to do that. So while they're looking at the case files of all the eyewitness accounts of the men who lived that last saw that serviceman and determining where he might have been at, while they're trying to determine can they retrieve those remains, the genealogists get hired to build out the family tree looking for DNA relatives that would possibly, potentially give a DNA sample to test against the remains once they come into the lab to ID him.
I like the way you said that, possibly, potentially.
Well, because you just don't know, because I call these people, because sometimes you have an adoption that can break my line because they're not a blood relative then. Right. And so until I call, I don't know. And it's getting harder and harder because people think we're trying to scam them, but we're not. Okay. So they won't answer the call. So we still send the letters in hopes that they'll at least respond to the Navy.
That's what forensic genealogy would be. It's more with a legal bent to
right.
it than just family research.
Right, but you have to do family research to find those people.
Yeah,
right.
Got it.
And I have to know which, because the Navy predominantly tests MT-DNA on the mother's side and Y-DNA on the father's side. So I have to build out charts. I have to type up the narrative, my source citations, proving on paper that those people are in that line to be able to give that type of DNA.
And this is a lot like what we're doing with the Eternal Valor Network on tracing ancestors. And it's what we did with Final Salute. And that is honoring the veterans, especially those who did not have a proper burial. We have to identify them, and then we are
finding the families.
In her case, she's working more connected them through DNA. Whereas in our case, we're trying to identify them from the cemeteries or the funeral homes. And so we're doing the same kind of work, but a different process. So, Julie, in your case, while you're defining forensic genealogy, what are the different kinds of specialties?
There are, I do probate work for attorneys where I'm looking for heirs or potential heirs. I've done mineral rights. I do the Navy repatriations. You can do land easements, quiet title. There's encroachment. I've done a case recently on that just here in Kansas City. It was a big case that I've been working on. And then I did a bunch with Purple Hearts back in the day. We were the ones that if someone had lost a medal or a medal was found and they didn't know who the family was, we would help trace the family. We had one for a while where kids were in the foster care program and they were aging out and they had no family. They had no idea who their family was. So we would build a report for them, and then the agency would reach out to those family members to see who would help with that child once they aged out. I've done a lot of property work where someone has passed away and no one ever did anything with a title to the property. So you're trying to find the family members.
So in your case with the property work, are you tracing deeds? Is that what you're doing? How do you prove who
No,
owns
I'm actually looking for the living families. Like, for example, the one I just did, there was two sisters over in the Grandview area that both had passed away and they lived on that land forever. It was their parents' land. They never married, never had children. They both died. Well, the city kept encroaching and taking easements on that property till someone, I don't know who, threw up a red flag saying, no, you can't keep doing this. You can't just keep taking the property. And so I looked for the living family members on the maternal and the paternal side so that the attorney could reach out to them regarding how to properly dispose of that property. What they wanted was they wanted the family just to sign it over to the city, which if I were them, I wouldn't, because I know how much it was worth. I saw the documents in the court. I would never just give it to them. Their goal was to hope they would just sign it over. That's their battle. I just identified the people. So
that used to be one of the definitions of forensic genealogists. It used to say we worked with legal and we worked with the living people versus working for genealogy, regular genealogy, I should say. I don't know, historical genealogy.
Right.
With historical genealogy, we're working with the deceased records.
Well, and the reason I have to be careful because I don't have a PI license, so I have to have a contract with a government entity or a lawyer to be able to find living people, or else I have to go back and get the PI license, which I'm trying not to do. So each state's rules are different, so you need to know what your state's rules are regarding that.
As you know, I remember I was a licensed PI for both Missouri and Kansas.
I do.
Kansas is much easier to get.
Is it? Okay, well, that's good to know.
And much less expensive.
That's even better to know.
Anyway, I did do both, and for the same reason, because you want the databases, you're looking for the living. There's certain software we can use that are public databases, so that's part of forensic genealogy. So what does a job look like for you as far as a day-to-day? What are you doing?
Okay, so for starters, I take the cases in the order I get them. I don't usually let people bump because if they've waited so long, that's not my fault. So I do them in the order I get them. So whether I have a task order from the Navy with 5, 10, 15, 20 names, or I get an affidavit probate that I need to do, I do it in the order I get it. So I start off in the morning, either with a brand new case because I just turned one in before lunch, or start with the last case I was working on the day before, and I continue looking. I have these little manila folders, and I one for per person per case, and I start writing all over the front of the folder of the family because I don't want to put into my family tree maker till I have a good feel.
Right.
And to make sure that there's no adoptions in there that's going to bust my tree open. So I start building it out on paper, and then I probably am killing trees, but I like to print it out the screenshots of the images that I find, and then I look people up and I start making phone calls as far as the Navy work goes. If it's an affidavit, once in a blue moon, I'll get the okay to make contact with the people, but usually the attorney or their law clerks will make the phone calls on those.
You're not necessarily doing direct contact with people. You're doing the research behind and then passing it on to the Navy to...
No, the Navy, I make contact.
Okay.
And when I first started, I couldn't. It wasn't until I got certified or credentialed that I could do that. Now I get to do that.
And so those are the people who are like, you must be a scam. And
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So I leave all kinds of information. Like the case I just turned in, I was out second cousins once removed because there just was nobody, and nobody would answer the phone. Nobody would call me back. And so I was leaving very detailed messages of how, here's my serviceman, her mother, the sister, and you descend from that sister. So I got one call back. So the
scammers ruin it for everybody, don't they?
They do. It makes it more and more difficult for us.
What are you certified in?
I'm credentialed actually through the CAFG in forensic genealogy. So I think the first part of the test is I have to write a forensic report. They review it, make sure it meets their standards. Then the second part is I have to do an affidavit, separate case, but an affidavit with all the components that you need to have. They review that. If I pass that part, then you have a written test after that.
And that
it covers
CAFG.
All kinds. Yeah, it has all those different areas we talked about. It's got all those different areas on it. You don't have to be an expert in everything. Like, I'm not a genetic genealogist. So there's a DNA section, but I know enough to do that section. But am I trained enough to do what CC Moore does? No, I am not. So they have their own test now, though. So I don't have to worry about taking that test.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
It came out not long ago.
So I want to make sure that our listeners understand that you are certified. There is a certifying organization.
There is.
But it's not a requirement. So, and the reason I'm saying that is because I have been doing forensic genealogy forever.
Right.
And it has been the bulk of my work, actually, through the years. And I have to say, I've never gone through a certification process. By 2012, I had plenty of clients, and most of mine were attorneys. Yeah. So there are other ways of entering into the field.
There is.
Yeah. Was that because you kind of grew up with, as you were working starting in, let's say, 2005 or 6, you kind of grew, Kathleen, with the more computer-based genealogy research, and so you were diving into that as it developed, as the DNA softwares developed, as resources. You were kind of in front of that, so you kind of grew up with it.
I was an early non-scientist DNA person.
There you go.
Yeah,
but I also realized there was a need for the attorneys. So as I was networking, they were gravitating toward me. So they were my clients, whether it was for biological parents or for a court case of a probate type or airship type. I did a lot of airships. But what I chose to do instead of being certified there, I decided to be a licensed private investigator only on that, the forensic side. I don't do surveillance and peek in your trees and find out who your husband's having an affair with. I don't care about all of that, but I do need the very important documents and records. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear with our audience, because I do want to put a plug back into the Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy. You mentioned an internship program. How do listeners get involved in something like that?
Well, it's a peer mentorship program. So we have a $30 general membership level that anybody can join. Anybody can come in, they can get into the group where you can ask questions, so they can at least get into that group. And then at some point, people have questions, you can answer it. If they have a question, somebody will help answer their questions. From there, if they choose to do the peer mentored review where you level up to be able to get to that certification, they can then send in a report to have it reviewed to see if they have enough experience. To be able to manage that. And then we would let them in at that level, and then they can ask to be assigned to a mentor who can then help give them work and help guide them.
I want to say, I said I wanted to put a plug. Although it's not required, I highly recommend anyone interested in this field to go through the full training, because it is a very specific, it's a niche type of genealogy.
And I think it helps give them guidance of what they're doing good, what they can improve on. And for a court, every court is different. But if you get your affidavit in pretty good uniform position, then every court's going to accept it without any issues.
Right. So one of the things I saw, I think, on your website was something about the Forensic Genealogy Institutes. Is that the same thing as the CAFG?
It is. It's the name of their institutes.
And what do I learn there that I'm not learning normally?
Well, we haven't had an in-person one. We did a fall one-day one last year. We did one last spring. We'll do one this coming fall. We pick a variety of topics, and we have like a 1-hour lecture on that topic. And then people can ask questions of that lecture and learn more about areas. Because maybe you want to do dual citizenship and you don't know how to get into it. Well, if we have a dual citizenship person talking, they can help them forge who to contact about trying to get into that field, or what they need to do for themselves to get in that area. And it's to give them an idea that there's all these different facets of forensic work that you can do. So maybe you just need to pick the part that interests you, because that's usually the part you're going to succeed at if it's the one that's most interesting to you.
So let me just say, hold on. DPAA. What is DPAA that's all over your website?
It's the Defense POWMIA Accounting Agency's website. We shorten it because it's easier to use the acronym than it is to say out the whole thing every time. So when I leave my messages for people, I say the whole word, and then I say, but here is the website, www.dpaa or whatever it is .mil. I should have that memorized. I have a script I read from so I don't mess it up.
And that's the bringing home the remains.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that way they can verify that the program does exist and why I'm calling them.
Got it.
And at the bottom of the family page, it scrolls across the bottom all the men that have been identified recently.
Oh,
but they have a whole page on the DNA and why we're asking for the types of DNA that we are.
So you're not necessarily just using Y, or do you just use Y and autosomal on your DNA?
Well, it used to be mtDNA, then they added Y-DNA. Now we can do autosomal. I have a chart somewhere, it's not in front of me, of like grandchildren and nieces and nephews that don't, you know, like the daughter of a brother. You know, she doesn't have Y-DNA, but she would autosomal. So I have a chart of those individuals that we can actually do for autosomal as well.
Okay, perfect. This is all so much fun. I didn't know what I was missing.
So my question is, have you run into any real posers, real difficult jobs that had a surprising outcome?
Well, my Navy repatriation work, I've been cussed at, hung up on, you name it, I've had it done to me. It's just very discouraging, especially when I have nieces and nephews alive and they won't call me back. The voicemail will say it's them and they will not call me back.
Wow.
I had a sister. Once in a blue moon, you'll have a sibling alive. You know, if she was born in the 40s and he was born in the, 1910s or 20s, and they'll say, I want nothing to do with you. And I'm like, how could you say that? That's your brother, And one lady, the biggest thing I get is the security of the information, and are the Chinese going to hack into that? And finally, one lady, you have to pick and choose what you're going to say to people. But one lady, her aunt goes, my aunt said you're going to call me, and I'm not supposed to talk to you because they're going to steal my DNA. And I'm like, do I go there or not? And I said, well, ma'am, what do you think the Chinese are going to do with your DNA? And she sat there and she goes, they're probably going to get rid of it, aren't they? And I said, probably. I said, what are they going to do with it? She goes, okay, I'll help you. But I mean, I can't do that with everybody, but every now and then you'll get one that maybe,
change their mind.
will change their mind. But I mean, I was at a dead end because that aunt had told all of them not to talk to me.
I look at so much of this as kind of from the opposite end, as I assume it's already had. It can already be found. It's already out there. As deep as you want to go, you can pretty much figure out anything you want with a couple of applications and some internet research.
Well, my DNA is out there on the websites, and so I told my family, well, if you've done something, they're going to get you through me because mine's out there.
Right. Right. I keep John's out there, Julie, just to see if he's into any trouble. I want to know if it's John who's in trouble.
She keeps sending mine into Crime Network, right? Check this. I don't know where he was yesterday.
So I'm pulling up my website so I can see what it says.
It says the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency is committed to bringing home the remains of servicemen from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Right.
It is our job to identify eligible family members, to provide a DNA sample and identify the legal next of kin. I think
that's the second
wraps
part.
it up.
Yeah, the first part of the DPAA's work is the DNA side, and then at some point they never tell me have they made a match or not. I don't know because they don't want me to tell the family if there's been a match made. But I get a second task order to identify the oldest living next of kin, because just because you're a DNA person doesn't mean you're actually the next of kin. So that is the oldest legal living family member, usually a child, grandchild, niece, nephew, sometimes a sibling. So I have to go out and identify who the oldest legal next of kin is, and I usually identify the top 3 people because usually they're quite elderly, but we do our best to get a hold of them and get a phone number that the Navy can call so they don't have to send the personnel to the home, because they will send them to the home if they have to.
Right.
Now, in the case I just finished up, one of the women was still alive. She's 95 years old. And I just didn't have the heart of me. It was her uncle to call, and I got a hold of one of her children. He goes, yes, send whatever to me, and then I will go over and talk to her about it.
I've had cases like that.
I try to be cognizant of that age before I pick up that phone and call, especially if it's a sibling.
Yeah, I would imagine that can be jarring.
Right.
And
plus, I don't want to get their hopes up either, because what if they don't find them before they pass away? That to me, gut wrenching too. But the children usually can,
handle
have that conversation a little easier.
So, John, do you have any other questions with Julie?
No, I actually don't. I've enjoyed, and I've been on the receiving end of so much information. I've been over here looking at websites as Julie was talking, and I'm scribbling things down as well. But Julie, thank you so much. I'll say thank you. I'll start off and say thank you.
Hold on.
But Kathleen looks like she's shaking her head like, no, I'm not done with her. Go.
The last two lines on your sheet. Ask Julie.
Oh, how can people get a hold of you? Look at that buried down at the bottom. Well, how can people? Yes, Julie, it's time. It's vlog time. So go ahead and.
The easiest way is to just send me an email. It's genealogysafari@gmail.com.
Easy.
So, Julie, we will add that to your show notes so people will know how to get a hold of you.
And what about social media?
Yeah, I do. From a Genealogy Safari, I do have a page. I have one as me too, but my website does have a page.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah.
And Julie, as for a person to actually become a part of the Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy, you talked about the fees. We will also add that website. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah.
And they can...
$30 for general, and then once you become peer reviewed, it's $110, and then there's a couple levels that you can level up as your experience increases, and then you can go for the credential at the end.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for the work that you do.
Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, that's our pleasure. That's our pleasure, and our listeners' pleasure, of course, because sometimes you come here and you learn a whole lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Kathleen?
And thank you, John. You were such a nice guy today. You almost behaved.
I didn't know that was a net plus. Go ahead,
Julie, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll talk soon, you and I.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, congratulations, you made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for staying. Thanks to Julie Whittaker from Genealogy Safari for chatting with us. Thanks to Chewy Chewbacca Brent for his unwavering lack of interest in anything we're doing. The theme song for Hittin the Bricks was written and performed by Tony Fistknuckle and the Bobs. Watch for their next appearance by the Stagecoach sign in Strawberry. Do you have a genealogical question for Kathleen? Drop us a line at hittinthebricks@gmail.com and let us know.